To start, put 1 1/4 cups of flour in a medium-sized bowl. Next, add 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Normal kosher salt works, and so does sea salt. And you'll need this again later. Next, 1/4 of a teaspoon of smoked paprika. Or mild paprika. I'm using mild. Now I'm going to start grating the cheese. I have 2 blocks of cheddar and 1 of Parmesan, but you can use pretty much any cheese. Once you're done grating all of your cheese, you should have about this much, and I'd say a cup. Now you can put your cheese into the mixture. Put your grater away and move on to the next part. Now take 1/2 cup of butter, which is about 1 small stick. Put it in a bowl, a microwave safe bowl, because we're going to be melting the butter. If you have some kind of lid for your microwave, that's usually the best. If you have a lot of time, you can also do this over the stove, but it works in the microwave too. So set it to about 1 minute and put the power level on probably 3. Okay, so once the minute is up, you can come and grab your butter. You can see it's fully melted, and usually you can tell because it's all yellow. If you see any white clumps at the bottom or floating around, that's the unmelted butter. It's very obvious. And if it's not completely melted yet, just put it in for another 30 seconds or so. So I poured my melted butter into the bowl along with all the other ingredients. Now you can add a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. Now you can use a spatula or a whisk or whatever you want to fold the batter together. And it might take a while. Now you can add a little bit of milk because it will be almost definitely too dry to mix all of the way. Don't put it away in the fridge after because you might need more. But don't just add it little by little because otherwise you'll have a really big puddle and you might not need it all. When you're done mixing, it should be about this texture. It'll look smooth if you flatten it with the spatula, but not too smooth. That's the way I test it. It's not at all like a cookie dough or a cake or anything like that. It's more of like a really, really hard cookie. Maybe more like a shortbread. Yeah, it's like a shortbread, but a savory one. You can try a little bit to see if you're happy with the flavor or if you want more salt or more cheese. But you usually can't add any cheese at this point, so just salt or seasonings. But it's not cookie dough, and it will not taste very good. Like, definitely not the same as cookie dough. You should let it sit, you should let it sit for about 20 minutes while you go and do something else. But it's mostly how long it takes for the oven to preheat, and preheat it to 350 and wait for that. And when you hear that thing beep, then it's probably time to come and bake these. Okay, So now you can put your dough onto a large cutting board, and you can roll it out, or you can use another cutting board to smash it down if you don't have a rolling pin or your rolling pin is not able to be used. Sprinkle this whole thing with salt, because having salt on top helps with the salt flavor. And you can just put it in a little bit and then sort of rub. Don't be deceived by how much salt you appear to be putting on, because you need a lot. So this is about how much salt you want to be on there. If you look at pretty much any other cracker, that's probably about how much there is on it. So now you can use a small knife. Oh, and the thickness should be about a ½ centimeter or a bit more. So now you want to cut sort of a grid into this, and you want each one to be, I'd say, about 2 inches / 7-ish centimeters long. And if there's a bit on the side that's different, that's fine, because it's nice to have difference in sizes. Like, you can't really find anything where everyone is exactly the same. Okay, so you should have little slices like this. They don't have to be perfect because you can rip them apart a bit, but they should look usually about like that. Okay, so get a normal cookie sheet with a piece of parchment paper, and you can start laying these out. You want to keep them pretty close because they don't expand hardly, they just go up. So you can keep them as close as you can, about this far apart from each other is plenty good enough. And you just keep going until the whole thing is filled. You might need to use 2 baking sheets if you have small ones. So this is about how far spaced apart they need to be. If you don't have enough space on the first one, which is pretty much certain, you can just do a second one. And you can spread these ones farther apart since you probably don't have all that much room left. And you can bake them when you're ready to bake. You can bake them both in the oven on separate racks at the same time, or you can do them one at a time, because they might bake, each tray might bake differently if you put them on the different racks. So now you can put them in the oven and cook them for 14 to 16 minutes at 350, like where we preheated it at earlier. And you should probably set the timer for 14 minutes to start, and if they're not cooked, then you should cook them for the extra 2 minutes, but usually 14 is enough.